So, a warm hello from Redwood City, and I'm happy to begin the week with you this way. And as many of you know, all of you know, that the medium for this path, practice of mindfulness, concentration, of compassion, love, that Buddhism emphasizes, is the present moment. It isn't that the present moment is the be-all and end-all of practice, but it's the entry point for something quite significant. That some of the greatest experiences or possibilities for peace, for happiness, for love, for joy, for relatedness to others, for compassionate and loving connections to the world, is the present moment. There's something special about the present moment, that we can enter into it or sit in the middle of it, that it allows us to touch into something very, very important that is not possible if we spend a lot of time in rumination, a lot of time thinking about things. Even if what we think about seems important and probably is important sometimes, or whether it's fantasy, and maybe fantasies that do provide a certain degree of pleasure, and they are incomparable to the pleasure and the happiness and well-being that can be accessed through really being here in the present moment. To not be ahead of oneself, not be caught in desires of wanting things to be different than the way they are, but to really settle and be here. And so what is it about the present moment that it operates, is such an important medium, such an important door for the depth of our experience? What is it that we can find here, and what is it we can be supported by and be cared by and care for? And that's the question for this meditation, is what is this present moment? What are we connecting to, and why is it so valuable? And are you willing to explore that question, to really be curious and interested in the gift of attention that goes into the present moment, arises out of the present moment? So to take a meditation posture, and to gently close your eyes. And this closing of the eyes, for people for whom this works, is a beginning of this process of tuning in to the present moment experience. No matter how mundane it might be, it's the way that we turn our attention to the present moment that is a big part of what makes the present moment special, that opens it to something deep. So turning the attention more fully here, and taking a few long, slow, deep breaths. Breathing in, attentive to your present moment experience. Breathing out, aware of your present moment experience. Breathing in deeply, and the sensations of the body can ground you in the present moment. Breathing out fully can connect us more fully to the present moment experience of the body. And letting the breathing return to normal. And also as a way, as a support for coming here in the present moment, take a few moments to relax what you can in your body. Where the relaxing is a further connecting to what's here and now, especially what's here and now in the body. Relaxing the face, relaxing the shoulders, perhaps relaxing the arms and the elbows. Adjusting your arms a little bit if that helps them be more relaxed. Softening in the area of your heart. And relaxing in the belly. Soft belly. Maybe a belly that relaxes downward and outward. Settling, something inside your whole area of your belly settles down into the pelvic cavity. A weight of support and ballast. And perhaps as you exhale, to relax the thinking mind. Relax the anxiety to think, the pressure to think. And breathing normally. It isn't the abstract present moment we want to be aware of. It's the direct experience of what we can directly experience, often through the medium of the body. The body is always in the present. And in that way the body is a support for you, an anchor here in the present. And becoming aware of how the body experiences breathing. Being aware of breathing while turning on the light of awareness that is shining on the present moment. The awareness that's not pulled into the world of thinking, rumination, fantasy, but is attuned to the direct experience of the present. Breathing. Giving yourself over to the simplicity of breathing. It doesn't have to be complicated, but staying aware of the rhythm of breathing, right from the beginning of the in-breath to the end of the out-breath. Just breathing, here and now. Whatever might be happening for you, be aware of it as present moment experience. Really, just what's happening now, here, now. In these minutes that you're meditating, in a sense, you're forgiven of all the things you've done in the past, and you're freed from all the things you have to do in the future. You're allowed for these few minutes to just be alive, breathing, here in the present moment. You're allowed to put aside your concerns, your fantasies, to let that active part of the mind relax and settle, to just be here in the simplicity of direct experience, not needing to figure anything out, maybe just being attuned to the body breathing. The present moment as a radical time out from the past, the future, time out for concerns which are not here and now. A time out so that you can really enter the time now. Time out so you can be time in, here and now. And one of the opportunities of the present moment is to feel the kind of inner movements of tenderness of the heart, of care, that is known as compassion. A warm, forgiving, caring tenderness that can be for oneself or can radiate through this being of ours. The present moment is a doorway for developing compassion, one of the great treasures of the human heart. And how is it that you experience compassion? What is your way? And what is it like to experience compassion when the mind is quiet, the heart is quiet, when there's a stillness of the body? So there aren't so many thoughts and feelings and body movements that distract from an inner quality of care, compassion, loving sympathy. And sometimes it's the compassion we have that enables a deeper connection to the present moment. A present moment which is paradoxically not troubled by anything. At ease in the sweetness of holding ourselves, holding all things in tender compassion. And as we come to the end of this sitting, to have the present moment be an opening of the heart, of the mind, to reflect on all the beings of this world and all the suffering of this world, and to have your compassion open outwards as a force that extends itself, that spreads itself, that reaches out to touch all beings, rather than the suffering of all beings coming to touch us and trouble us. We extend ourselves towards all suffering as a loving force to quiet the flames of suffering, the fever of suffering. May the extension of our compassion and love help cool the fevers of the world, the fevers of greed and hatred and delusion, the fevers of suffering. May all beings be free of suffering. May all beings be free of the agitation, any agitation from their difficulties. May all beings experience the absence of hostility directed to them. The absence of our hostility. May all beings experience full peace. May all beings be happy. May all beings know that they are cared for by others, that people do care. May all beings everywhere be happy. So with this talk, I begin a 5-part series on the Brahmavihara of compassion. And it's hard to imagine Buddhism without compassion, that it's one of the primary forces that has brought Buddhism down to us, down through the ages. It's one of the primary movements or things that are awakened in us with awakening. The more awake we become, the more compassion there is, the more care and love, goodwill. And I like to think of awakening, this famous English word for liberation, enlightenment, includes the awakening of compassion. And certainly for me, one of the big surprises and treasures of Buddhist practice was the slow and gradual awakening of my compassion. It was so gradual and slow that I didn't really recognize that it was happening while it was happening. I wasn't oriented to notice it, even though I was changing. And in retrospect, after a few years of practice, I look back and seen that, well, maybe I didn't get enlightened, but I certainly became compassionate and discovered this wonderful quality in myself And to my surprise, it was a quality that was very satisfying to feel. It has kind of a sweetness and a subtleness and a rightness to it. In and of itself, compassion is not troubled by anything. And to come to this untroubled compassion is one of the great tasks of a lifetime. It's certainly easy to experience the suffering of oneself, the suffering of others, and have certainly alarm and upset and distress around it. It's also possible to have qualities of compassion together with distress. But to be able to have compassion without any distress is one of the great gifts that we can give to the world and to ourselves, and that come from Buddhist practice. What is compassion? I almost don't want to define it too much, and sometimes I like to think that I don't really know exactly what it is, even though it's been one of the central organizing principles for my life for much of my adult life. I can't think of very few things that are more important for me in how I live and what motivates me and how I orient myself to the world than this compassion that's been awakened in me. So it's clearly very important for me, and so it may be a little bit odd for me to say, I can't really define it exactly. And perhaps it's because over the years of my practice, what I have called compassion has changed over time. And that maybe as I've developed or as circumstances have changed, that the quality, the characteristics of compassion has not stayed the same. And in fact, maybe there are different forms of compassion. And so in the course of time, we tap into these different forms and shapes and characteristics of compassion, so that we don't want to kind of, narrow it down to just one thing. This is what it is. So a little bit reluctant to give a definition that way, but it's also helpful to understand some of the classic definitions of it. And probably the most classic Buddhist definition in our tradition, the Theravadan tradition, it doesn't come from the Buddha, who never actually defined karuna. And so it's a little bit a guessing game, really, to understand what he actually meant by this word karuna, the Buddhist word for compassion. But Buddhaghosa, a teacher who lived about 1,000 years after the Buddha, he provided a wonderful description of compassion, karuna. And he begins with what he loves to do, and many Buddhist teachers in Asia love to do, is they try to connect the meaning of a word with words that are similar sounding, kind of like not quite an etymology game, but a correspondence game of similar sounding words. And so karuna, is K-A-R-U-A-N, U-N-A, and it's so it starts with K-A, and so he has all these words that coincidentally are kind of start with K, or kind of like a K-A-R in Pali, that then he sees as being kind of resonates with compassion, or gives the reason why it's called karuna. And so and so the word compassion, I've translated these words with English words that start with C, C-A or C-O, to go along with this the C-O at the beginning, closest in meaning to what the Pali words are. So it is compassion because it causes the hearts of good people to be moved by the suffering of others. So the hearts of good people to be moved by the suffering of others. And first, what does it mean to be a good person? The word can also mean an ethical person, someone who lives trying their best to not live from hatred and greed, lust, trying to live from qualities of friendliness and goodwill and kindness and wisdom. And so as people who have discovered, and this is why meditation is so helpful, I think meditation helps us to become good people. It helps free us from these forces of hostility or ill will, or the things that we can do that hurt other people, and to be strongly motivated not to hurt. And if we're such a person who's able to be in the present moment, it's such an important place to be as a reference point, as a discovery of this life. Then to be in the presence of others, people suffering, or know about it, something inside of us moves. Some people translate this word as trembles or shakes. We're moved by the suffering of others. And the question is, how are we moved? How are we moved so there's no distress? So then the definition goes on further and says, it is compassion because it combats, strikes, and destroys the suffering of others. It's a little bit paradoxical or ironic to use such violent terms in relationship to compassion, but it does speak to the strong motivation to really make a difference, to really try to overcome suffering in this world. And not to just kind of accept it in some kind of deep way, but really have this goal, this idea that it can end in some way or other. And then it is compassion because it covers or moves, covers or those who suffer. The word can also mean in Pali, moves or affects other people who suffer. So the compassion touches other people. So it moves, covers those who suffer, reaching out, or actually, here there's a different translation, reaching out to pervade those who suffer. It is compassion because it covers those who suffer. So it moves those who suffer. So there's something that we reach out from the heart with the idea of suffusing or spreading compassion. Now, is this kind of fanciful thinking to think that compassion can spread from us out into the world? Is there a force, like, electricity that there are, wavelengths of vibration that spread out? What is it? I don't know, and I'm disinclined to call it anything that, but we do affect each other. We do pick up the cues, the tone of voice, the mannerisms of others. We can feel sometimes the intentions of others. And to know that this spreads out, it means that to know that somehow people are touched by it. It resonates in people. And for us to open our hearts and spread loving kindness and compassion to the world, as if we're suffusing, we're touching other people who suffer. A little bit more I want to say about this ancient definition or discussion of it. Compassion is characterized as supporting what reduces suffering. I like this definition because it's not necessarily saying we work directly to end suffering, but we help reduce the support for suffering, the underlying causes for suffering. And that's many, many things. Sometimes it's things in the external world, sometimes it's things within. But whatever it is that supports people to suffer, or is a condition for people to suffer, that is addressed by people who have compassion. Compassion, next one is very important. Compassion functions to not carry the suffering of others. Compassion has the quality that when we have this karuna kind of compassion, we're not burdened, distressed by the suffering of others. And that is one of the key qualities of this compassion, to not be distressed or burdened by it, and to be interested in alleviating suffering elsewhere. It manifests as the absence of cruelty. Its proximate cause is to see the helplessness of those overwhelmed by suffering. To see the helplessness of those overwhelmed by suffering. I mean, that really can touch the heart in a deep way. People suffer, but there are some people who have no ability because of circumstances, what's happening in the world, they're helpless. They can't really help themselves. And that really tugs the heart. Well, if they can't help themselves, who's going to? Let me help them. People are in war zones. People are in tremendous experiences of oppression, and that the whole system is set up around them. The whole world is set up, and there's no way out of their oppressed state, their terrible state they're in. And the idea that people are helpless sometimes in their suffering, and tugs on the heart and awakens this kind of karuna, compassion. And compassion succeeds when it makes cruelty subside and fails when it produces sorrow. So when cruelty subsides, hostility subsides, and sorrow, and there's no sorrow, it doesn't elicit sorrow in us, distress in us. So to have our hearts moved in such a way that we're not burdened, not distressed, that there's absence of hostility and anger, but a strong motivation to help and support people to suffer less. That's kind of the general kind of parameters of what this compassion is. And I think many times this part that it doesn't involve being burdened. There's no distress in it or sorrow involved in compassion. That is kind of the art. That's kind of like the magic of it or the specialness of it. And some people cannot believe that or cannot justify that. They feel like there has to be sorrow and distress and a sense of weight, the weight of the world on their shoulders. But to have this compassion that is sweet, that the compassion that is one of the great sources of being happy in the world. If we want to be happy, live compassionately. But the compassion of karuna, a particular kind of compassion that the Buddha emphasizes, or Buddha Gosha here emphasizes, it's a very special thing. And in these few words that I had to talk about compassion, what I hope is that it will awaken in you a curiosity and interest in what is compassion for you, and what does your compassion feel like? What reference do you have for compassion that is sweet, compassion that is a source of well-being, compassion that is deeply moved by the suffering of the world, but is not burdened by it, distressed by it? What is that? Do you have any reference point for it? And if not, maybe you can reflect on this and think about it and talk to people over the next day about your relationship to compassion and how you understand it. So, thank you very much.